Hey guys, so I decided to upgrade my taillights here to the Rizoma iRide S. It's a little bit smaller, has one LED in there, high intensity, about the same price as the OEM here. Only issue is that the ECM over here sends out a negative pulse current to the taillight module, makes it blink, light up the brake lights. So, the first thing you have to do when you want to upgrade your taillights is solder in a relay. There's no module on the market yet that does this for you. So the first step is buying a pre-printed prototyping board. This is a PCB board that I'll be able to solder the relay onto. Just cut it out here with a little handsaw. Okay, so now that I'm done trimming this PCB, I'm going to solder in a few of these sockets. This is the back side of the PCB. Then once those sockets are in, the relay will just press in place. And I'll electric tape around it so that it's weatherproof. Here's a cheap little soldering iron. Turn it on. You want to solder around 600 degrees, something this small. If you solder too cold, you won't get the solder on there effective, and you'll end up overheating it. So in this instance, you want to go a little bit warmer. So I'll set these sockets in the right position, and then we'll solder them in place. When you're soldering these sockets in place, you want to make sure that they line up, that they're at the right angle so that the relay will snap in place. Best way I know to hold these sockets in place is just a little bit of electrical tape upside down. Hold the PCB at the right angle, 90-degree angle to the sockets. Line them up. Don't forget a little bit of flux on them. Okay, so as the diagram in the description shows, the red wire coming from the turn signal goes to the 4th post. So we're going to flip it upside down. We're going to solder that in right there to that pin. This job can be a bit tricky. You really need 3 hands to do it properly, but you can see I used a bit of the wire jacket from the original harness here to prop up the PCB. I'm going to tin the wire a little bit. What that means is heating it up, getting some flux on there, and some solder. What this is going to do is make it a little bit easier to connect it to that pin. We don't want to overheat that pin. Generally that's going to damage relays. Since these are just sockets, it wouldn't damage too much. Okay. So now that wire's pre-tinned. Going to give it a little bit of heat. This is going to the number 4 pin. Okay, now it's stuck there. Let's get some flux. Helper stick. We're going to bring in some more solder. And this isn't going to look too pretty, but I want to make something that's not going to come off, because this is going on a motorcycle. Okay. Doesn't look too bad. Let it cool off there, clean off the iron. It's not going anywhere. Okay, I got another section of 18 gauge wire here. I already pre-tinned it. This is eventually going to go to the white wire coming from the wire harness that sends the signal, the negative pulse current. Tells the brake module to pulse the turn blinker. Let's see if I can get this down in there. Got it pre-tinned, pre-fluxed here. This job really needs 3 hands, but if you're creative, you might be able to make away with 2. Heat that up a little bit. No. Let's bring in some more solder. Okay, let's look at that. Seems pretty solid. Socket moved on me a little bit. I'll have to adjust that when it cools down a little bit more. Okay, now I take 2 sections about 8 inches, 10 inches of 18 gauge wire. One very short section, about 3 inches, 18 gauge wire. I'm going to solder these together. This is going to be going to the 4th post, and this short wire is going to be going to the 3rd post. Okay, so how I'm going to be doing this, take the 2 longer sections. See if I can get this in camera. Just want to splice them together. Okay. Come in here with the soldering iron. Let's make that a little bit more permanent. Let's heat it up a little bit. Bring in some solder. Get a lot of solder on there. That's good. Bring in this other short section of wire. Let's just make that go right there. Come on, you want it. Let's try pre-tinning this little piece real quick. Try not to breathe in the smoke. Can cause cancer. Just too bad because it does smell kind of good. Okay, that's sticking better. Bring in some solder. Let's make that a good solid connection. Don't want this ever coming off. Okay. Gonna let that cool. Let's get some more on the back side there. Soldering iron heats up the wire. Then you just add soldering where you need. Mine doesn't look too pretty. I'm sure most of you out there could do a better job than me. But that's gonna hold. Okay, now we take this short piece of wire, like I said before. That's going to the 2nd post here, not the 3rd. 2nd post. Right, because from this side, 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's the 2nd, just like the diagram. Let's pre-tin that. Do it the right way. Okay. Our wire's heating up really quick. Anywhere great to hold. Okay, let's see if I can come in there with some solder. bring in some more solder. Let's make that a little bit sturdier. Okay, that's gonna hold. And like I said before, one of these long wires is gonna loop back. Touch that fourth post, that last post. It's a bit tricky here. It's kind of like wrestling with an octopus. Let's pre-tin this guy. It looks good. See if I can set that. There, you like it. No, get back on there. Had it. There we go. Okay. So there we go with that. So you can see this big wire conglomerate here connects to the third and the fourth post. And these two are going to go to the separate, that big clump, and this is going to go to the separate wiring harnesses. Let's lay that all out. Okay, so before we solder anything and close off the circuit, let's add some heat shrink. Add a big old red heat shrink to this wire with all the solder. I'll add a yellow one, goes to the white connector for the taillight module. Okay. You can add a yellow one to the wiring harness that goes back to the motorcycle. And let's add a red one. This goes back to the red wire coming from the taillight module. Now I'm going to solder on this. It's the white wire coming from the taillight module. Goes to a resistor here. And from the resistor, I'm going to go to, this is the number 1 post. Keep mixing them up. This is the first post from the relay. How I like to do this is I just push this wire in through the quick release. See, it kind of pops up right there. What I'm going to do, come in with this soldering iron. Yep, right there. Okay, come in with this soldering iron. Heat that up real good. We're going to fill that up with flux and solder. Let's get some more solder in there. Just fill that connector up. Okay, that's not going anywhere. And they have these little rubber boots on the end of them. Just push that up and over the connector. And this is going to go over the other end. Heat that up with a heat gun. And we heat it up, the shrinks right in. I'm going to put some electrical tape on either side of this too, just to make sure it's really watertight. That's pretty good. Okay, now we're going to solder this red wire coming from the motorcycle's wiring harness to that big clump coming from that number 1 pin. Got it pre-tinned here. There, she likes to stick right away. Get some more solder in there, make it real ugly. Oh yeah. right there. That's really good. Okay. Push the heat shrink up as much as I can, but that's starting to cool. Let's push that over. Hit it with a heat gun again. Let's watch that. Heat shrink. Just like magic. Again, we're going to go over the ends with electrical tape because I don't want any water getting in there. Okay, so now we're going to solder this number 2 post wire to the white wire coming from the motorcycle's wiring harness. Just kind of splice them in a little bit. Make sure the wires aren't going anywhere. This is a real easy solder. Just pin it down, heat it up. Coming with good stuff. It's about as easy as it gets. Now the last wire, number 4 here, 4th pin, goes to the red wire coming from the wiring harness for the taillight module. Got to go into a resistor, and then the lead coming from that resistor terminates here. Okay, so I'm going to take this wire, just kind of twist it up, and we're going to push it into this quick connector until it gets in that good spot. Okay, made that a bit longer. Let's heat it up, get some solder in there. Make it real thick. Doesn't even look that bad. Sweet. Pull the little rubber boot over it. Get some heat shrink on that. Sweet. Okay, so now the last steps, take the black wire, ground wire coming from the wire harness going to the motorcycle. Take that to a little 4-inch jumper or so. Solder that in. And since this is the ground, we're going to be taking it to the black wire going to the taillight module. Just going to twist this guy up, push it inside the connector. Don't forget the heat shrink. Now that we got that wire in that connector, pin it down, heat it up, get some of this nice solder in there. Let's fill that in. Okay, that looks good. As before, pull down the little rubber boot, heat shrink over that. Great. Now we're done wiring. Okay, so now that everything's buttoned up and taped excessively, fit it inside the rail and then bolt it back on the bike. Okay, so I was able to squish mine in there like that and still have access to the bolts. Next thing you do is hook everything up. Make sure that both tail lights work. So first thing, running lights were working. Let's try that left turn signal. Looks good. Let's try that brake. At this point I thought I was done, but I noticed that the resistors were causing the tail lights to look amber instead of red. Must be something with the reduced wattage to the module. I cut out the resistors and the tail lights were red again. After all, this project took me 5 hours of research, 10 hours of installation, and a few hours of troubleshooting. Replacing the lights with OEM would have been easier, but if you're like me, upgrading for the same price is a no-brainer. I have had the taillights working for a month now. They've proven they are waterproof, trustworthy. This upgrade is an uphill battle at this point, but it is possible with the right tools and hardware.